Staith da, Ewi Nagan. Welcome to podcast number 142. So I expect you've been wondering all week, did he make it down to the rugby? Well, if you're friends with me on Facebook, you will see that yes, I did. But last Saturday morning, we did have Angela's funeral there up at Delabole, St. John's Church. I think 'tis St. John the Evangelist Church, I think 'tis. Which all went well. A lovely crowd there. All went very good. And the burial was actually at St. Tude, which was a little bit further away. So we did that, no problem at all. And I got back to work and I picked James up at 1:20. And Cornwall kicked off at Redruth at 2:00. Now, it is better than it used to be because they've done that new road, A30, so they have improved things. And, I mean, we didn't tank it. We just went down sensible speed. But when walking down there, we got into the ground at 1:55. So we just did it, which was brilliant. And there was a good crowd there, really, because this is the only home game this season that Cornwall will be playing. So there was a fantastic crowd there, usual like Betty Stoggs. We got there just in time to see him hanging the giant pasty over the crossbar, which is something that have been done for a long time now. And I say, we always go Hellfire Corner, which has always got a fantastic atmosphere, really have. So, yeah, we got there, like I say, just in time for the start, and just in time, just before the kickoff, was the triumphant team of 1999 when Dean Shipton was the captain, and they did a lap of honour walking around the pitch, and with our own John May there from St Mirren in the team. So it was lovely to see that. But then things started to go downhill. 'Twas a pity, really. We didn't have the best of games, a few errors, mistakes kind of thing, and I mean, we was on the back foot. We played good in parts of the game, but we ended up losing 34-18. Now, in the second half, we scored 2 tries, well, pretty soon after each other, which put us into the lead. We got fantastic. We was over the moon. We really was. But the second one we scored, the linesman then said that our player, just as before he went to go for the try, his foot went off the pitch and the try was disallowed. And then shortly afterwards, Kent went up the other end and scored the winning try. But it was a good afternoon, seeing a few familiar faces, I must admit. We didn't see many from Wadebridge. In fact, I don't know if we saw anybody from Wadebridge. But yeah, it was a good afternoon anyway. But that's basically the county championship over this year, because Kent won a week before as well. So even if we win tomorrow, we might Hampshire, I think, tomorrow. So even if we win that, well, we'll be second. But no Twickenham this year. So apart from that, the rest of my weekend I worked. I think I worked Saturday evening, all day Sunday. I'm getting caught up though. I must admit, I can almost see the light at the end of the tunnel, which is good. And then next week, we're a little bit quieter. I think we've only got one funeral next Thursday because 'tis Royal Cornwall show. So families always try to avoid that in our area. I mean, mainly the logistics with the traffic and everything. But also, a lot of families say, well, we don't want a funeral then because our friends could be up show, sort of thing. But, yeah, so that was my weekend. And, of course, then it was Bank Holiday Monday, and I worked all day Monday as well. But there we are. But I say I got caught up. And then this week, it's funny. It's like a while ago, we was up in Delian all the time. And then we was out Rocks at Minver and that. Well, this week I've been a full week pretty much of Padstow. It really had. We had Dear Jan's funeral on Tuesday. Brilliant crowd. Fantastic. We was at Glyn Valley. I mean, they were stood outside, couldn't get in. It was unfortunate because it was raining, which was a pity. We've had such beautiful weather, but then we've had a few days that haven't been so good. And Tuesday was one of those days. But there was a brilliant turnout for Jan. And then in the afternoon, bit of paperwork. I did have my Teams meeting with my local representative from the Golden Charter, the the funeral plan trust that looks after all the money that's invested for all the funeral plans that we take on. So I had a little meeting there with Terry there, which was good to have a catch up. And then we was on to Wednesday. In the morning, Moya's funeral, a quick trip down to Penmount. Garden's looking handsome down there. Absolutely fantastic. I must admit, everywhere in Cornwall this time of year, everywhere's so fresh. You know, the leaves have just come out, and it is fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. And then back for Joy's funeral then, another lady from Padstow. And I must admit, I mean, I did feel sorry for Jan's family and Joy's family, because both of them passed away just before May Day. May Day, such a celebration, such a good time in Padstow. And tis like Christmas to a lot of other people, and 'twas so sad that they both passed away just before May Day. But there was a lovely little crowd there as well for Joy's funeral. I've known them for such a long time. Very good friends with Joy's mother years ago, Edna. So, yeah, that was a lovely little service. And then from then I went straight down Perthilly, down to St. Michael's Church. Some people call it Port Hilly, but 'tis Perthilly. Now, I think that this church is one of the best kept secrets in our area. And I'm just going to spoil that. But there we are. 'Tis a beautiful little church. It really is. But the thing is, when anybody like visitors are driving around and they turn in, they think, crumbs, we're in the wrong place here. We're in a farmyard. And you are, because you've got to get through a farmyard to get to the church. So whereas St. Enodoc, which is only a mile or two away, is just every day there's flocks of people go there, because obviously we buried Sir John Betchan there years ago. 'Tis set in the golf course there, St. Enodoc. That's so well known. This little gem, a lot of people don't even realise is there. And when you go in there and the tide is in, I mean, it's handsome when the tide's out, but when the tide is in, looking across to Padstow, oh, it is beautiful. And all the boats are out. Also, the other side, you've got the Yacht Sailing Club building right the way along. And you can actually see Gordon Ramsay's house as well. He's looking down over the beach. But 'tis a beautiful little set and a lovely little church. Now, when we first started going there, well, when I started going there back in 1983 with Father, I think, was it Canon Gent was the vicar now? I'm trying to think. But it's such a small church, and the done thing back then was that the family would follow you to the church door, and then the bearers would just slip to one side. So all the family would go in and take their seats, and then we would carry the coffin in and put at the back of the church by the font. There'd be about 3 rows behind it where kind of friends would sit, or distant family, but all the immediate family were sat in front of the coffin and they couldn't see it. And it was a strange feeling, really, and that carried on for quite a few years until, I can't remember which vicar it was now, but one of the latter day vicars, as I would say, they said, I don't really like that. Can you carry up to go through the screen, because there's a screen there, a lovely wooden carved screen, and go up in front of the altar? So we said, well, yeah, we can. 'Tis hangish difficult. I mean, we carry on the poles like we usually do the Cornish way. So you've really got to twist the pole as you're going up. One's walking in front of the other instead of side by side. And you can only have 4 bearers. So if 'tis a heavy coffin, the middle 2 have got to drop out, at the doorway. So that's what we do now. So we carry the coffin up. So at least the coffin is at the front of the church and everybody can see it, which is good. But, yeah, down at Perthilly, I was looking a little bit of history, and they're saying that it was first mentioned that there was kind of a religious building there back in 1299, which is quite a few years ago. And then somebody said, where I read it was restored in 1867. But if you're ever down that way, 'tis well worth a visit. They got a lovely Cornish Celtic cross there, which I don't know how tall it is because most of it is buried actually in the ground. But I know years ago you had St Minver Cemetery or Churchyard, St Minver Churchyard, and you had Perthilly. And all the Rock people was buried at Perthilly. All the St Minver people were buried at St Minver Churchyard. But then St Minver Churchyard filled up, but the council couldn't open a cemetery in St Minver until Perthilly was filled up. So you got a few St Minver people that were actually buried down at Perthilly, and then once that was filled up, we then had a cemetery open up at St Minver by the cricket club. So now there's no new burials down at Perthilly. To be honest, I can't remember the last time we reopened a grave for a second burial because it's so long ago. You can still bury your ashes there if you live in the parish. They're very strict about that there because a few years ago they weren't quite so strict, and people that perhaps come down on holiday fell in love with the place. They go home, and then when they pass away, they get cremated and they say, we was on holiday, we love our ashes down there. And it was just getting filled up. So they are pretty strict about, burying the ashes there now. And I got a lovely story. When you do carry out a burial down here, the coffin is always facing the east. Always facing the east. And apart from a vicar, if you're a vicar, you're buried the other way round. They say so that on the last day you rise up, you're facing your flock. I think that was the thinking behind that. But we had a Padster chap, and he married a maid, I think it was from Rockway, and he ended up living in Rock. But we asked the vicar at the time, special permission, could he be buried the wrong way round, so he was looking towards Padster? And the vicar at the time said, no problem at all. So that's a little story for you there. There is one person buried in St Michael's in Perthilly, looking towards Padster. So then on to Thursday. First thing, we had one of those funerals where the direct funerals, as they call them, where no one attends. So that was first thing. And then again, we was down to Padster, to St Petrock's Church for George's funeral. Known George a long time. His wife actually used to teach me when we was at the boys' school. Years ago, she taught me in year 2. And dear Bob Simpson was in church. Now, Bob, I think he must be the only one left of the teachers that was there at boys' school when I was there. Because we had Bob in year 1, Pauline in year 2, Beth Warren in year 3. Well, sadly, Beth passed away not that long ago now. In the last, time goes so quick, 6 months. I'm sure it would 12 months. And then Mr. Arthur Harrison was year 4. And then Nick Kumbelek was the headmaster. So, dear Pauline taught me. But, it was a lovely crowd. It really was. And it was an honour to do that funeral too. And dear old George, he did say to his family, I'd like to have that boy up Wadebridge. And not many people call me a boy anymore. So, that was lovely to hear that. I must look into history of that church sometime. I know a little bit about it. I mean, 'tis a very big church at Padster, and a quite impressive church. It really is. I know at the time, the first church that was built there on that site was 518 AD, which is a brave time ago, and that was by Petrock, and he was a saint. And I don't know if he made his way up through, because we got Egglesdale Parish Church, which for a while they would call St Petrock's Church, but we got that there. But then there's obviously St Petrock's Church there in Bodmin. But first of all, the church was built on that site in 518. But then I did hear that, I didn't hear because I wasn't there. I did read. I did read that apparently that church and everything that was in it was destroyed by the Vikings in 981 AD. And then a second church was built around 1100. And then that was replaced by the church that's there now in 1425. So that's a little bit of history lesson for you, I'll tell you. But yeah, I say we had a lovely service there. And then in the afternoon, I was down St Mirren. Not too far away from Padstow at all, only a few miles, 3 miles, if that. And if you go the coastal road, you go through Windmill, and then you got a hang of a dip down and up the other side, and they call that the Alps. And I tell you what, they hills is a lot steeper than what we cycled up when we was in Scotland. But I've just, about an hour ago, I did put a photo on our RJ Bray Facebook page of the Padstow Pride, which is there growing at the minute in the churchyard at St Mirren, and 'tis looking beautiful. Now, if anybody knows why 'tis called Padstow Pride, I'd love to know. I think the proper name for it is Red Valerian. But I did put a photo before when I was out St Mirren in the past. And I'm sure somebody from more up North Cornwall way said we used to call it Port Isaac Pride. But I don't know. But it was looking lovely. It was a sea of reddy pink. I did put a photo on our Facebook page. But the sun was shining. We had a beautiful afternoon there. And that was for Dinah's funeral. Now, Dinah had passed away up country, and we brought her back home, which does happen quite a bit, really, where people have moved away, but it seems like their roots and that final resting place is back home where they was perhaps born and brought up. And that was very much so today, actually, because today we had Cher's funeral, Shirley. And Shirley, she'd lived out Amble, I want to say last 40 years. I'm not too sure if that's right, but for a long time she's been out Amble running the post office, and she sadly passed away, but she was born and brought up in Bugle. And so today we took her back to Bugle Chapel to have the funeral, and there was a lovely crowd there. The sun was shining. It was fantastic. It really was. And then we brought her back to Amble for the burial. But I can remember her, forever really. Her son Matthew, he was in school with me when we was at the girls' school. It was actually the junior girls in infant school when we was the infants, but everybody in town was the girls' school. And I was talking to Matthew because I haven't seen Matthew, I don't know, most probably since he left town. And that was when he was 7, 8, 9 years old, something like that. But I was talking to him because Matthew now lives in Australia, but he did come home when mother was poorly, and he was obviously still here for the funeral. And we was really good friends at school, at the girls' school. And the one thing that I can always remember, which he can't, which he knows now because I told him, was sports day in the running race. And I can remember it vividly to this day. We had the running race, the boys' running race, and I was leading. And I was doing pretty good, really. I think I slowed down over the years. And I'm getting near the finishing line. They got the rope there where the two teachers are holding it. And I looked back over my left shoulder to see if anybody was behind me. And they all hang of way back. And I thought, I've got this. But while I was looking over my left shoulder, Matthew overtook me on the right. And when I looked back, he was in front and he left me for dead. And that was it. So Matthew won and I came second. And I've never forgot that. And it's like the name of the podcast, Don't Look Back. I didn't know what to call it today. I thought I'd call it Don't Look Back. Because if I hadn't looked back, he might still have beat me. I don't know. But if I'd seen him coming up, I might have tried a bit harder to try and keep in front. But there we are. But it was lovely to see him again because, as I say, they moved to Nance Stalin before we went boys' school, I think. I'm trying to think now. I don't know. But, so I lost contact with them. But we were catching up. It was brilliant. It absolutely was. Talking of Don't Look Back, I was... when I'm getting ready for work in the morning, I'd never watch telly at all, but I usually have YouTube on in the background on my phone when I'm getting the breakfast ready and that. And of course, since the cycling up Scotland, I've got really back into the cycling again. I haven't got much chance to time-wise to cycle at the minute. Evening times, I just cycle to work and back again, which in the mile, I think it's 0.96 of a mile. But I stumbled across a Lance Armstrong documentary. As you already knew, Lance Armstrong, he won the Tour de France 7 times. But then there was always the doping going on. I think most of the big teams was doping back then. And of course, he was stripped of all his titles. But I came across a documentary that he was talking, and he came up, or him or the chap interviewing came up with this saying that I've never heard of before, which is said there's a reason that the rear view mirror is smaller than the windscreen. And I thought that was quite a good a saying, really, because, you know, it's important to look back a bit at the past, but you're heading forward. And the mirror is the past, but you're looking at the windscreen, that's what's ahead. So I did think that was quite a good saying. You've most probably all heard it before, but that's the first time I'd heard it, and I was quite taken with that. I did look, because I wondered where Bugle got his name, really, and I didn't know a lot about it. I mean, we always used to go through Bugle, well, we still do. If you go St Austell kind of thing, you would go through the little town there. I suppose, is it a town or a village? It might even be a village, I suppose. Yeah, it would be a village more than a town. But apparently, I mean, it was established back in 1836, 1837, and then the Bugle Inn was built in 1840. So I'd done a bit of research, because I thought, well, like with your Cornish words and that, your towns and villages, a lot of them have got English names kind of thing that were originally Cornish names, and they've kind of changed over the years. But with Bugle, I don't think that's the case. According to me research, Bugle was a village that grew up around the pub, the Bugle Inn. And they reckon that the inn was named after a local bugle player who was quite a player. He was quite well known for his skill at playing the bugle. So that's what I found. If anybody knows any different, you know, let me know. And of course, Bugle has still got a band there now. Now, I think, are they a silver band? I think it's Bugle silver band, I think. I'll have to check up on that. And also every year, there's this really big brass band contest there at Bugle. And that is, I'm looking, 3rd Saturday in June. So if you're into your bands, if you've never been before, 'tis quite a thing, really. I think there's over 40 trophies that are played for. So that's Bugle Brass Band competition. So that was Bugle there today. And that's been my week, really. I think I got a weekend of work ahead of me. We got a funeral tomorrow morning at our chapel, and then to be paperwork in the afternoon, and most probably a bit of Sunday. But next week we are looking a little bit quieter. Like I say, because we got the show end of the week, I am open to go up the show sometime. So hopefully I'll see some of you up there. But for my Cornish word of the week, I thought I would do Perthile, because obviously I've talked about it earlier, and is a mixture of 2 words, Porth and Hilly. Now, Porth, that's Cornish for cove, sometimes arbour, but cove, and of course it is a lovely little cove there by the church. And Hilly, that is the Cornish word for salt water, or like seawater. And of course you can see that because that is where the estuary, the Camel Estuary, has come all the way down through Wadebridge, and that's where it meets the sea. So just around the Padstow Rock area, it's then going into the sea. So that's how it gets its name, Perthile. So there we go. And for me Cornish dialect of the week, I was talking to Tony, well, it was a few weeks ago now, and we was talking about the word wished. So if somebody is, I think I've done this the dialect before, but I thought I'd go into it a bit more. If somebody ain't looking too good, they say, "Coy, you looking some wished." And I thought I would just mention it today because he's heard where it might well have come from, because it's a funny word, really. And he said there was always a saying that if you was ill-wished by a witch, they'd put a spell on it, and then you wouldn't look too good, you'd be poorly, whatever, you'd be wished. So that's the Cornish word. I think I have the Cornish dialect. Sorry, I think I have used it before, but that's what Tony have come up with. Why we've got that word. So wished is when you're ill-wished by a witch. Try saying that late at night after a few drinks. So there we are. So that's what I've gone for today. Right, well, I'll leave you now. I know I've said this the last 3 or 4 weeks. I am open to do an interview for next week. So fingers crossed, I am actually open to do an interview. So hopefully I will. But I hope you all have a good week anyway. Might see you up show next week, see how it goes. But wish you well. Do Gannis. Carnobis Vican.